Hi guys and girls, I'm Oposite and welcome to Exploring Elite Dangerous episode 41. Today we're doing something a little bit different, taking a step back from the other side of the galaxy and looking a little bit closer to home. This is the Orrere system. You saw me here a little while ago when I investigated the crashed Anaconda, but the place is so immensely interesting that I had to come back here and check it out for a good close look. Now there are 3 moons orbiting here very close together, almost in contact with each other. One of them, as you can see here, has a rather dense layer of mist completely surrounding it. And if you get down into the craters here, that mist becomes even more noticeable. It makes the world very atmospheric. The sort of place that very much feels like an alien planet. For those of you that have been watching this series for a while now, you'll know that exploration isn't about any type of gameplay mechanics specifically for me. It's very much about going out into what would be the equivalent of the wilds and finding interesting sights to see, interesting lays of the landscape, interesting star system configurations and nebula and things like that. Planetary landing, of course, has opened that up dramatically, but from time to time you still come across these points of interest. Some of them not quite so interesting, other of them are certainly worthwhile investigating. This one, for example, had somewhere in the region of 10 canisters of gold around, so as I was close to home it was certainly worth me stopping off to try and pick that gold up. Of course it was quite well protected by the sentries here, but that kept it interesting, especially over this type of rugged terrain. There was around 4 to 5 sentries here, along with one of the little bomb type ones. I forget exactly what they're called now, but they usually fly towards you and just explode on contact. After having a bit of trouble trying to shoot these sentries with the forward facing turrets whilst using the driving mode, I decided it would be much easier just to switch to the turret and destroy them like this, and they were pretty much eliminated in short order once I did decide to do this. So, sentries down, a nice little bounty collected. I then drove around and collected up all the canisters of gold and loaded them back into my asp. Now, nearby there was a nice little canyon, one that was pretty narrow with quite steep sides, and I decided to have a little fly through of it. If I was to get some damage, I was close enough to home that it wouldn't really matter too much. And here you can see the mist in effect yet again, giving us a slight inkling of what it might be like when we finally get atmospheres into the game. Although unfortunately we don't know when that's going to be yet, we do know that pretty soon now we should be getting both volcanic and ice volcanic planets, which should make things a little bit different again, shaking things up that little bit more. Now here I did make my first mistake of the little flight. Yep, I hit the wall there and took quite a significant amount of damage to the hull. I guess that's what I get for messing around, but it was worth it. It's a nice bit of fun just flying around like that. Elite isn't anything if it's not for its flight mechanics, which are very, very good. Now here you can see this area of the Orrere system in its full glory. The misty planet I just left from, which you can see there now in the distance, 2 planets orbiting very close together. This one here is the 3rd planet, and when you're far enough away you can see just how close they actually all are to each other. Now these trinary moons are actually orbiting the gas giant that's right nearby, a ringed gas giant, and every so often you can land on the furthest out moon when all 4 of these planetary bodies come into conjunction with each other, and when that happens you are treated to a rather nice sight. You got a glimpse of this right at the start of the video, but I thought it well worth showing you again. Just look at that. Further out of inhabited space, some multiple thousands of light years away, is NGC 7822, a very dark and specific nebula. What's specific about this for me is that it's a place where you can find extremely dense clusters of blue-white stars along with a massive number of black holes. Now if you're not an avid explorer like me and are turned off by the vast distances to cross to the other side of the galaxy, into the deeper regions of the galaxy, you may want to come to NGC 7822 if you still want to see some rather fascinating and awe-inspiring areas of this galaxy that we're playing within. As you can see here, most of the systems around here are absolutely chock full of stars. This system here has no less than 14 stars, and this is one of the lower numbered ones. And of course there's a nice black hole right toward the outer edges of the system. Now, one thing that remains true for blue-white stars is that pretty much no matter how far away from them you actually fly, you'll find yourself and the environment lit by their blue light. Now, this is in contrast to other systems where no matter whether you're in a system with a yellow star, an orange one or a red one, you always find yourself lit by a white light. Now, Elite didn't always used to be that way. There was a point back in early beta where if you went into a system with a red star, the area was lit up with red light. Maybe one day that's something that will return to Elite, but for now we can make do with areas like this planet. It's an effect which has a real immediate impact upon you, and it gives these planets such an unusual vibe to them. I last come to NGC 7822 not too far after the game's initial release, and even then the area felt very isolated and very remote, mainly due to the darkness of the nebula here and the fact that it isolates this region from the other areas of the galaxy. You can see in the sky here that pretty much all the stars, with the exception of those that are inside of the nebula, are actually blocked out. And now that we can get down to the surface of these planets, we can see that that sensation of remoteness and isolation actually extends to these worlds as well. And I've got to admit, I find these sorts of environments really interesting, not just for the purposes of exploration, but for the purposes that one day these will possibly be areas that we're actually playing within. As you've probably seen, recently there's been some alien structures discovered within the game, and it's been strongly hinted that their origin is centred around nebula. So that would perhaps mean that sooner rather than later we will find ourselves playing within systems like this, and these are a lot different to what we see within human inhabited space. Some people, perhaps with good reason, often cite human inhabited space as being very similar from location to location, but that's not true when you actually get out into these nebulas, where places are very different from one place to the other. You can see how that blue light actually casts itself across the entirety of this system. Here I was a little bit further away from the central star and coming down to the surface of yet another planet. In the distance is the gas giant around which this moon orbits, but as I get round to the dark side here, you can see again that we start being lit by the ambience of the local nebula. Now, for me, this makes this place quite an interesting location, particularly if you imagine at some point in the future having some sort of settlement down on these planets. A planet where during the day cycle you're lit by deep blue light, and during the night cycle you're lit by bright, brilliant red light. And in the distance there we can see the local black hole distorting the nebula itself. These locations, these nebula, are ripe for new types of gameplay. They're ripe for people other than just explorers to come into, and at some point that is bound to happen. I can't see a Frontier going to the lengths to place these types of places within the game without them having some sort of ultimate purpose. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time. Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant. The Great Distant Worlds expedition got underway on Thursday the 14th of January, where over 800 players met in the Pallini system to begin their epic journey across 65,000 light years of space. A journey that will take 12 weeks across 23 waypoints through various nebula, the supermassive black hole at the centre of the galaxy, and eventually onwards. This is how the players met up.